Boo! What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of Opinionate. My name's Murphy. I hope you had a great Halloween weekend. I know I did, dressing up as TV's best new villain. And by the way, what's Glenn's favourite TV show? Now, while last week's episode was perhaps one of the most brutal and emotional episodes that the series has ever put out, this week's episode was a complete tonal shift. And when I say complete, I mean complete. This was perhaps one of the most light-hearted episodes that the series has ever put out. Normally, such a tonal shift, such a contrast like that, normally I don't think it would work, but this week it really did. Now, the big thing that this week's episode was introducing was King Ezekiel, played by Kari Payton, hope I'm saying that correctly, and his pet tiger Shiva. Now, this was something where the show really could have slipped up and gone wrong completely, because King Ezekiel is a very oddball character. His whole community, called the Kingdom, are basically these medieval dudes. Like, they think it's Halloween every day of the year. They don't really, by the way. Instead of screwing things up, they've instead introduced perhaps one of the most interesting characters in the show. Like, say what you will about him, have Morgan and Carol say what they will about him, he's actually a character with the only real working community that is it's a great community. Like, people are happy there, people are safe there, and yeah, okay, they're a bit mad on the whole thing. They might love Game of Thrones a bit too much, but it worked. Also, the dude has a freaking tiger, like a tiger. He also has a working relationship with the Saviors. Of course, they had to make an appearance just to remind us that the Saviors are still a threat in this show. Just to remind us that it's not all hunky-dory. And the way he deals with it is brilliant. He feeds walkers to pigs, and then gives the pigs to the Saviors and says, there you go, have that. I just have to give a shout out as well to, I think, perhaps the most unsung attribute, the most underappreciated attribute to the show, which is the casting. Oh my god, like, recently the casting has just been on point. Obviously, getting the casting right for Negan was very, very important. So I thought, oh, maybe there's a chance they're not going to nail some of the other characters, and I think they totally have, and like, this episode just cemented that for me. So if the show continues to cast characters with the perfect actors, which it has done so far, then great. Another thing from the comics that they seem to have changed with this episode, and I think a lot of people who have read the comics saw this change coming, was that in those pages he has a very close relationship with Michonne. It's a complicated relationship, to be sure, but a relationship all the same. Of course, the TV show is a bit different. Michonne is now with Rick, so probably was never going to happen. But it now looks like it was hinted at in this episode that it's actually Carol that might take her place, which I think is an interesting way to go, and it will be a good way for Carol to go, I think, on the show as well. That hint came in the form of basically Ezekiel coming clean to Carol. He says, what's the phrase? You can't bullshit a bullshitter, which I thought was brilliant. It was great that they also showed Ezekiel's true colours at the end of this episode rather than save it for later. I think if they saved it for later, a lot of people who aren't familiar with the character would have been very confused. Like, what the hell, there's a medieval dude in The Walking Dead now? Okay. Whereas at least at the end of this episode we found out that it was part of his act, that the stories of this guy who tamed a tiger just sort of got out of hand, and he lived up to that. He thought that that was what people needed, so it was good that they revealed that, I think. Of course, King Ezekiel wasn't the only thing happening in this episode. We also seem to get a conclusion and a bit of closure to the whole subplot with Carol and Morgan. I really like the way that things ended between those two, where they basically compromise each other and come to terms with the fact that they are going to work in different ways, and I think that's good. It's been one of the better subplots that this show has ever had. So now that that's over, it hasn't just stayed on for too long, which I sort of feared it would. And now it means that we can get to see these characters do other interesting things. After having watched the episode, I was trying to think of, was there anything that I didn't particularly like? Was there something that I thought dragged the episode back? And to be honest, I really can't think of anything. Like, it was a pretty great episode. If there was something I had to choose, I'd say that Carol's innocent persona that she had, and we've seen it before, was very OTT, like almost unbelievably OTT. But then again, look where she is. She's in she's in this settlement where they think they're in medieval times. So it's more of a niggle than it is a downside. Overall, was it a great episode? Absolutely. This was a brilliant episode, and it was the perfect episode that we needed, especially after last week. I think people are still trying to get over last week. People are still talking about it. So this was good that we sort of had this completely different episode that was a lot lighter hearted, that showed the show still has substance. It's not just about the brutality, that it can have fun with itself. And it's great before we move on, because obviously Negan is going to be coming back a lot more in this season. We are still going to have some of these brutal moments, so it was good to have that breathing space, I think. But what do you guys think? Did you enjoy the episode? Did you not? As always, give a comment below, give us a like, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. Boo!